Welcome to Lykken on Lending, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the mortgage industry. Your host, David Lykken, bringing you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. Whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, this show is your go-to source for all things mortgage. Let's get started. This is Lykken on Lending. Now your host, David Lykken.
Listeners, as you know, I have the privilege of coaching some really top leading executives. And we're going to invite one of them to come onto the podcast today. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to give you some insights on what we talk about in coaching, some of the things we deal with, because I think it's important, like what goes on when you have a coach? What's it like? And so joining me on the microphone is someone I've had on here as a guest before, Emily Gardner of Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group. So good to have you.
I'm glad to be here, David. Thanks for having me on.
You are the Chief Lending Officer. For some people who have different titles. Basically, that is what again?
I am in charge of all things sales at Atlantic
All
Bay.
sales.
So it's I get the pleasure of working with our regional managers and all our sales leadership, our recruiting arm, our business development arm, and our marketing arm of sales.
I mean, you started out in production, and then you've ascended to this. You were one of the top producers. Give us a little. I share this because those that are trying to come up in the industry, like, how do I get a job like this? How can I get there? So, how did you get to where you're at?
Yeah, it's actually funny. When I got hired into the industry, I actually started in processing and was in the operations
In
side.
fact, you used to process for one of my good friends, Toby Harris.
Yes, I worked for him. He hired me into the mortgage business and gave me a chance, which was awesome. And so, yeah, and then, my desire was always to be in originating. And I had a leadership background before the mortgage industry. So after, originating and working as a loan officer, had the opportunity to get into leadership. And it just kind of progressed over the years. I was producing sales manager for a long time and came to Atlantic Bay and had the opportunity to be a regional manager and stop producing. And again, it just lots of different things evolve. And I think a lot of times you have to build that up yourself. People look at it as a ladder you've got to climb, and I kind of look at it differently. You've got to really build that underneath you, and if you continue to build underneath you, then you elevate up and you can continue to grow in the positions that you desire. And a lot of things that we talk to you about, and we'll probably talk about today, and with the strengths that you bring to the role.
Well, I think Zig Ziglar said it so well. It says, how to get what you want. You get what you want by helping others achieve what they want. And I think that's so powerful. And I have the privilege now in my retirement years. This is my retirement project. I get to coach, find people, and I get so much joy. And we're going to talk about the importance of finding your place and getting joy. We're going to tease out a teaser because we're going to get to that towards the end. But give us an update of how things are going there at Atlantic Bay.
Yeah, we're going pretty well. It's one of those years that I think you look at and can say, wow, this is challenging. But, we are up year over year in volume, which was awesome, and continue to have months that exceed last year, which is great. But one of the things that I look at, of course, that's near and dear to me that I think is really impressive, and I'm so proud of our team, is that we're up 364% in net earnings year over year, which
that's the real number. That is huge.
Yes, for all those leadership folks out there, I know that you're looking at that too. And I think all of us.
I think a lot of them are going to look at that almost in disbelief. Repeat that number one more time.
Yeah, 364% up in net earnings over last year. And it's really just because of a lot of hard work that has happened across sales, across operations, across corporate, of trying to get as efficient as possible. And I think we all came off the COVID years and had gotten to a place that maybe we weren't as efficient as we could with our business. We've all had to adopt technology and different advancements, but the team has done a really great job in the last year. And when I started kind of looking at mid-year numbers and reviewing this and seeing how far we've come, it was just really, really exciting. And there's still a ways to go. And I think every single day we continue to look at that. And it's something that is part of our goals and our rocks each quarter to see how can we continue to do that, because we need to do that to make sure that we're serving our team and that we can continue to be, a driving force in this industry. So it's an ongoing thing. So for sure. And and so, and other than that, I think recruiting, obviously, for everyone has taken on a new challenge this year. And we've really focused a lot on making sure that we're innovative in the way that we go out there and attract folks to the company, but also with our current folks, how can we continue to level them up in their business and make sure that we're driving their success?
Yeah.
And And I think a lot of that too has been a big focus on social and digital marketing, which I think is something that is crucial in business right now and will continue to be.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I kind of want to get into because you do that exceptionally well. A lot of people who see your videos out there are going, "Dang, she's so good. She's so articulate." But it took a little bit for you to get into it, and I know you've been working on this. I coach you on some of the communication styles and some of that, but this is one of the things that seems to be working for you. That's my perspective. That's what I'm hearing from others. Do you feel that it's working for you?
I do. And it's something that, I kind of started during COVID because I couldn't go out there and be in front of everybody like I wanted to be. And I'm just a big believer. I know a lot of people are nervous about video and scared, but I'm a big believer in the way that you can connect with folks through video. And I have a personality that I feel like I want to share, and it doesn't necessarily all come across in text, but I think if it's through video, you can be empathetic and that can come across. You can get excited, you can show that passion. And I really want to just stay visually in front of our team internally. And then externally, really just kind of be able to share more about who I am, try and put some thought leadership out there for others. And hopefully they can learn from, my mistakes and the things that I'm constantly working on with you and coaching and being able to share that. And to me, it's even gotten easier than writing. You can just really quickly just get a video out and get a point across that people can hopefully understand.
Well, one of the recent videos just sent me I think it was just today or yesterday it was. It's called in the moment videos, and I've been encouraging you to do those. And so when you communicate with me on the in the moment, or you communicate with your people in the moment, there's something that comes through with that. And I think it's so important. It's the authenticity, the transparency that a lot of people are afraid to do. They think it has to be perfect, and it doesn't. That's the most important part of this thing. I think the less perfect it is, almost it's got to be contextually solid and all the things. There's some things, there's do's and don'ts, obviously, that we talk about, but it's more important that you get a message across authentically, even if it's not as well worded as you think you would like it to be. And I know you process, you could tell you're processing as you're recording. And I think that's one of the things you do extremely well.
Thank you. That is one of the pieces of advice that I would give to people. Don't get too hung up on that. Some days, I even will start with like, whoa, my hair looks a mess today, but we're going with this, and I think those kind of make you real. And when you do that, it doesn't have to be, you've got makeup on and everything's great and you've got a cute outfit on. It's not like that. But back to the end of the moment, and I think, sometimes, I'm sure other leaders out there do it. I'm going through the numbers every day. I'm looking at the pipeline, and if you see things, instead of even just shooting somebody an email or a text, I just take my phone out, hit a video text to them and just say, hey, I was just going through my numbers this morning and I saw that your lock pipeline, was at $10 million. Like, whoa, that's amazing. Or somebody that's maybe struggling and saying, hey, look, I saw you took 3 applications last week, great job, keep going. We're there, for you. So them just kind of hearing that where, maybe a text is great, but just seeing that video and having that connection is, I think, way more powerful. And to me, again, it's quicker. So they're just, trying to type something.
And you don't get caught up in that, some of the unintended long duration conversations because you get the message across. And several people have told me about videos, they save them because we don't get enough kudos and attaboys, attagirls kind of comments that come across to us, and they mean something. And you'd be surprised at the number of listeners that will save your video just because they want to go back and play it again. And I encourage that. So form a library, and I have a whole drawer full of those trophy letters as well as videos that have come my way like that. So listeners, as you're looking at this, realize the additional benefits of this. Let's talk about some of the coaching. One of the things you are doing a really good job doing with your people, and the reason you're having the profits up as you have, as well as year over year increase in production, which a lot of people are struggling with, you do this through a coaching style. Let's talk about what you are learning about the importance of coaching and how you're raising up people to the point you actually have several people now that you see could ascend into your position at some point.
Yeah. I have always been a big fan of coaching, and we've coached together for a number of years now, and it's really valuable. And I encourage even our team to coach with folks. And our organization has a lot of that philosophy around it. Our owner is coached. Most of our executives are, and again, all of my sales senior leadership. But it's my why, it's my passion to lift people up, to make sure that they have a career path. And again, my goal is to push them to do things that they didn't even think that they could do. And that's something that you and I work on, and to make sure that if I keep leveling up, then that, makes me help them level up, and it pushes to new levels. So I think it's great. It's something I find passionate. We've talked a lot about recently, about finding your joy and finding your strengths. And that's a huge part of it, and not being threatened by that, and then seeing what lessons you can learn, from each other, and, complement each other. My strengths may be very different than some of my other leadership team's strengths. And we have to make sure that we're leveraging those, and that we're working together on them. And then even our leadership team is working together. And that's something that I've been really passionate about this year, is making sure that everyone is coming together and recognizing that.
Yeah, one of the things you and I talk about, anyone who's heard me talk, I talk about the 6 working geniuses. I'm a raving fan about that. I think it's such a game changer for everyone. And I think that which gives you joy, you are going to do better, and you're going to do more effectively and have the greatest impact in your team. And there's things that all of us don't enjoy. You and I both share that getting into the numbers and the details kind of just is not our thing. We're wanting to have more of an impact. But they say, well, aren't you the head of production, or don't you run a business, Dave? And don't you need to know your numbers? Absolutely. But how you get to those numbers. And recently we were talking, which is one of those transparent moments where you have a regional manager who is really good and loves getting the numbers. Yeah. And I suggested about, let's let him get in the numbers, and then you get the results. You get the outtake of the numbers. You don't have to dive in and become an expert on, but you need the numbers. So talk a little bit about how you're doing that, and then the other individual who's really good at sales, and how you're starting to play to each of the people in your team's strengths to give you freedom to do the things that you love to do.
Yeah, no, and I think that's so important. And that took me a while. And that's something in coaching that you've taught me a lot about, is that you don't have to know everything, and you don't have to be good at everything. And I think a lot of leaders have that insecurity that I can't coach and develop people if I don't understand every aspect of the business, if I've not, excelled in every part of the business, and how am I going to be able to lead and coach them? And, that's something that, you have to get past. And that's something that I'm working with my leadership team on. But as you look at that, and again, you can say, okay, this leader is so good at, like you said, at strategy, at digging into the numbers, about getting results, and doing that with metrics that make sense and everyone can get behind. How do I take that and make sure that they're not doing that just for their region, but are bringing that up to a company level? They're actually supporting other regions with that, so that together everyone gets stronger. And then back to what you were saying, if you've got somebody else that's really great at communication, that's really great at breaking down information and making sure that everyone understands that about what's going on in the market, and how you're communicating things internally, and how you're coaching and develop people. How can that person, and that sales leader really reach other areas and be able to leverage that? And that's what I think is really exciting, and being able to recognize that in folks. And then hopefully the goal is through my coaching and development, that I can coach them to see that in each other and leverage that. And that's been a really big focus for me this year. And it's cool because, we set something in place with our sales senior leadership, and some shared goals, some shared rocks and projects this year that they kind of take on together. And that's neat to see, because I feel like in COVID, everyone got kind of siloed.
Yes.
And everyone's doing their thing. They're trying to survive. And we've come back, and we're in this whole new wave of survival. But if you step back and you look at it as a company, and most regions, I feel like, kind of operate independently. They're just concerned about their growth, their profits, and what's happening, in their ecosystem of larger culture. And I'm trying to break that down with our team and say, no, that doesn't help us. The rising tide lifts all boats. Let's come together. And we have a shared goal, that is across all areas, and really looking to leverage those strengths that everyone has. We've got another regional manager that's really great at technology and the loan process, and understands areas of improvement. So how can these people all work together, and then, draw from our marketing, draw from our business development, draw from our recruiting team, and together achieve that goal? And it's neat to see. It's neat to see it working. It's neat to see them sharing resources, sharing ideas, and collaboration. And knowing that they don't have to do it all on their own. So it's pretty cool to
Yeah,
see.
I think the mistake every junior new manager makes is they have to feel they have to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And when we overcome that and we start playing to each other's strengths and we look to people, others, I think then it brings a collaboration and a sense of teamwork. And obviously it's working to have your earnings up that much and having grown your production. Things are really working. Listeners, we're going to get right back to the interview that we're doing with Emily. It's really good. But Byte Software is offering something for free. That's a promotion that I want you to hear about. Listen to this.
Well, hey everybody, I hope you guys are having as much fun this summer as I am. You know, summer's that time I get to break out my smoker and start cooking up some brisket and ribs and pulled pork to share with my family and my friends, my neighbors. And I was doing that this weekend, and it made me think about how in today's world with technology and we want everything instantly and not have to wait, that, you know, there are some things that are still worth waiting for. Like perfectly cooked barbecue that wasn't rushed and cooked to perfection, and like Byte's browser-based next generation LOS platform. You know, when we started development, we didn't want to rush it. We didn't want our clients to have to settle for less features and functionality than they're used to. And we definitely didn't want them to have to go through a full re-implementation. Well, guess what? Our new platform is here now, and we like to think it was worth the wait. So head over to bytesoftware.com, request a demo, and see why Byte has such happy clients. Enjoy the rest of your summer, everybody. See ya!
But also your company is big on the EOS system. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think what Stan and Brian, the founders of the company, have done, you're really building on their success. And you talk about that. You have a great deal of respect for them. And yet you are also finding your way in how to run the organization the way you're wired. And I would love to talk about EOS, how that all works together. And kudos to Brian and Stan for recognizing your gifts, abilities, and raising you up to the role you have. It's obviously paying off for them.
Well, thank you. I've been very blessed. I mean, they're amazing leaders. They've given me a ton of opportunity to grow, to learn, you know, through their mentorship and the abilities of what we can do. And you have some good points there. I think one of the things that we took a big focus on this year is really 10Xing our business. And a lot of you may have read the book, you know, 10X is better than 2X. And it kind of comes from that. And that's a tough shift, because we were a company that was trying to cater to everybody and be everything to everyone. And you just can't do that. And you certainly can't do it in this market and the way things are. So we had to take a step back and say, okay, what do we do that's the needle movers, that's got the, you know, return that we want on our investments in these different areas? And how do we still support our team and grow, but be more efficient on that? And that's what all of our leadership is kind of coming to do together. And that leads to the EOS process. Like, we adopted that in 2018, and it's been amazing for us. And back to that collaboration part of it, we meet as an executive team every Wednesday for an hour and a half. It's our two owners, it's the 5 executives, you know, represent me from sales, and then our ops and corporate leaders. And we are not siloed, because we come together in that meeting every week. We look at our goals for the year. We look at our goals for the quarter. Everyone has to report on how those are going. We bring issues to the table to discuss. And so everyone is on the same page, because even prior to that, we were all going different directions. I'm running sales, you know, our head of ops is over here. We weren't coming together and really making sure that strength of our leadership is there. And then in addition, every quarter we meet off-site. We plan out our quarterly goals to make sure, again, that they align with our 1-year picture and our 3-year picture that we are working toward. And then we do a couple of off-site retreats every year to, again, continue our relationship. But those, you know, we don't compromise on those. You know, we stick to it. We have a plan of how we attack. And then whatever happens there is then cascaded down through the organization. And that's a big part of what I feel like my responsibility is we create as an executive team that overarching vision, that plan. And then it's my job to make sure that I'm communicating that to sales. And then our regionals, you know, have their way of then taking that down to their region and then their branches. But it all leads back up to that overarching vision and goal that we set together and everyone, you know, aligns around. And it's been really great for us to have the EOS process at our company.
Yeah. And Jack Nunnery, who used to run Texas Capital Bank, is a really good friend. And he and I consulted to the bank for a period of time. And he gave me a phrase that I I chuckled at. He says, "Lickin', if we ain't rubbing, we ain't racing."
Right.
And what he's talking about in NASCAR, they're bumping into each other. There's friction at times and things like that. So you talk about coming together as your group, and I don't want to paint this picture that it's all Pollyannish. Everyone
No.
holds hands and sings "Kumbaya." You each have conflicting interests at times. You have the compliance, you have the the financials and all that, and that's the thing that I really want to applaud your team. So I hope the ELT will listen to this, as your executive team, as well as Brian Stan, because what you guys have built and how the culture that they've created to allow for the rubbing and the sparks and the friction and how you all work through it. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you guys come together? Because any organization, anyone who's in a C-suite listening to this is going like, come on. You guys you got your challenges, the conflicts as well. So give some insights of how you have applied your approach to some of that rubbing and while you're racing.
I think it's a great analogy. My husband's a big NASCAR fan, so I understand that. I'm just learning the sport, and I do think there's a lot of good analogies that, especially with teamwork and everything that happens. But yes, it is not all rainbows and puppy dogs, and especially as somebody that leads sales, and I am a dominant personality. I'm very aggressive, and obviously, salespeople don't like taking no for an answer. I'm usually the one that's probably causing some of that rubbing, and that's okay. And I think what we do and what we've done, I think it's a couple of things to it, is we've really gotten to know each other well, and we respect each other. And I think part of that EOS process, with us coming together each quarter, with us doing these offsites, and with our offsites, we are usually in a house together, so you're spending a lot of close time. And we have 4 of our 5 of our executives are women, so there's 4 of us women too, which can also have its challenges. But we've really gotten to know each other personally, professionally. We share a lot with each other, and we've really worked hard on communicating. And when you have those days that someone is upsetting you, or you're not communicating well, stopping and calling that out. And I would say sometimes, as we go through the quarter, emotions get high and things are not working well. And then when we come together in those off sites and we're in person together and we can talk through some of those things, there's laughter, there's tears, there's anger, as we do. But we all respect each other and do it in a way that we come out usually feeling better on the other side. And one of the things you've worked with me on in coaching that has been difficult for me, but I'm really trying to impart on my team now, is looking at the other perspective. Yes. And I think I had some issues last year. Well, again, compliance and legal and sales don't always mix. And so
that is oil and water, almost always.
Exactly. So I was having some challenges with our head of compliance and legal. And, I just really felt that she was trying to preclude us from doing business. You're just putting roadblocks up every step of the way for us to be able to do what we need to do. And we were just not getting along. And on the other side, I was completely frustrating her in many ways. And we ended up having a conversation, and me looking at it from her perspective was really eye-opening to say, look, she felt that I didn't respect her opinions because I was trying to constantly overturn them. And I also didn't understand of how me and the rest of our leadership team was causing her team so much work, so much extra time, that they were, nights and weekends with us continuing to shift or change direction or want to push for something that, was not going to be easy. And I didn't see it. I didn't say, oh my gosh, I can see why you're frustrated, because we're sending you one direction, then you're sending you another, and you're doing all this work, and then we're going this way. And, that's a tough conversation, but we were able to get on their side of it. And now I can step back and even with our leadership team and say, well, how do you think they're feeling in this situation? Let's look at that other perspective. And that's made us stronger.
Yeah, it's the power of asking questions too, rather than coming back. I mean, it's not always the easiest thing, because we're having an emotional reaction. But oftentimes, if I'm triggered in a conversation with someone, if I could just calm myself down to ask a question rather than just retorting back that wrong emoted kind of response. I think that's one of the things, is the power of asking the right question. And then the other thing is the power of storytelling. I think this is something that you're really developing a skill in as I work with you on the coaching side. I think there's nothing more powerful than when you're relating a point you're trying to make, if you can mix in a story, or at least make it like a case study. Say, let me share with you kind of what's going on from our perspective out here, and you relate it, you package it in you draw people into it, and all of a sudden they start going like, oh, when I hear about it like that. So.
Those are two difficult things for me. And it's something, like you said, that we're working on in my coaching and that I'm every day trying to be conscious of is one, the questions. I do get triggered and I get emotional and then I go into that fight mode. So I am trying to stay calm, stay rational. But to your point, questions are great, but I think I've gotten better at questions, but I need to still get better because there's two things in questions that I'm not doing well. Is one, asking the open-ended questions versus a closed-ended question, right. And really trying to step back and say, okay, as I'm going into this, situation, how do I rephrase this as an open-ended question, not a closed with a yes or no answer? And that can be difficult. And then two, how do I not have leading questions? And that's probably the one I'm most guilty about. And I think a lot of probably leaders are, and this is something you and I talk about in coaching, is I may know the answer or I may know the direction I want them to go, but can I help get there with questions and help them get there versus me just basically telling them but trying to phrase it as a question, which doesn't get you anywhere.
It's the motive behind the question and the way we frame it.
Right.
But this is where I think this is where the EOS is so powerful, because when you guys are all unified around a purpose and a plan, it's kind of like, and if the question comes back and you keep going back to when something's really gotten really cloudy and there's a lot of emotion mixed into that, it can cloud the room up. And I think when we get clarity is when we go back to what the value of EOS is. Let's go back to what we're trying to really solve here. What are we really trying to solve here?
Right.
And then you start back there and you work back into the place where you're at. And oftentimes clarity can come out. What's so fun about you, Emily, and I share this publicly, is that you're so hungry to learn. There's few people I get a privilege of working for that are as open and honest about where they're at and how hungry they are. And I want all the listeners that are listening to this is take away from this interview, can I be more open? Can I be more hungry to learn? And that has been Emily's success, and it's translating into over 300% increase in earnings and growth year over year. It's working. Does that mean everything's perfect? No. Oh, we're in the mortgage business. We're in the mortgage business. But the reality, things are going really well for you, and I'm proud of you. And I'm just such an honor. It's such an honor to be with you and be in a relationship with you as your coach. And you're doing an outstanding job. And kudos to Atlantic Bay. Thanks. One of the things when I go to these conferences, I'm a member of both TMC and as well as Lenders One. And your gals, when they all show up, and they show up at these, what's so impressive about your team, when they show up, Emily, and I've told you this, I've texted you, I take pictures, we take group pictures because they let me in on their inner circle, so I get to be a part of these pictures. And but they show up at these conferences taking notes, like very few. A lot of people, like we were in Cancun with the Lenders One conference. I mean, most everyone's out at the beach or at the pool. Your group was in the room taking notes. Everyone that was attendance was taking notes. And I had several people say, who is that Atlantic Bay group? They're like taking this so serious. And it's because you come, you play hard, you work hard, but kudos to that team for how they show up at these conferences. Stan and Brian should have something to be very, very proud of and what they have in you all.
Thank you. We do have an awesome team, and they're always trying to get better and learn too. And I mean, I love learning, which is crazy because I did not love school, but I love learning. And I feel that every day I want to be better than I was yesterday. And I have to elevate myself to elevate my team. And to do that, I've got to constantly be trying to, read, listen to podcasts, do whatever I can, have coaching, have peer conversations, all of those things that you can do to level up. And I just want to be that information sponge and then be able to go out and to give that back and communicate it. And that's a big part of it, and I listen to, your podcast, which is amazing. And, I listen to Housing Wire Daily. We have a great podcast at Atlantic Bay with Linda Forward, Reed Chrisman every day.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. I mean, Reed Chrisman, reads National Mortgage News, Mortgage News Daily, tons of stuff on the MBA that comes out, and all of those things in the industry, are there to help us. But then there's so much that you can get from coaching and development too, and all of that, leads us to trying to be better. And and I appreciate the support you give me, and I am still trying to get better at my stories, and
You get
I think
better. You get better.
that's a big part too of kind of not telling people, but coaching people is making sure that you can share stories about experiences or share stories about others, and hopefully just give them some insights without having to just say, well, you should go do that, even if they come and ask you. So it's pretty cool.
Well, it's been a joy to have you back on the podcast again. We got to do this more often, but I want to give our listeners a little insights to a company that's doing extraordinarily well in these very challenging hours. I just hung up the phone with my good friend Brian Hale, and he goes, I've never seen a market in all my years of being, I've been at 51 years in the mortgage industry. I've never seen a market as difficult and challenging as this. And then you look at the growth that's happening at Atlantic Bay. And you told me about this today or yesterday. You told me about someone who heard about the culture, and they called Brian or Stan and said, I want to join a company like yours. And when you do things with a purpose, doesn't mean everything's always perfect, but when you do it with a purpose and you have an EOS as a guiding light and you hire people like Emily around you, that be around you, you can accomplish things, and it's drawing people in. People say, how do we be successful at recruiting? Create a culture where other people want to come, and they'll be there.
That's
Emily,
important. I mean, our culture is the most important thing to us, and that's one of the things that Brian said to me as we started growing the company, together 17 years ago, is we could never compromise the culture, and that is something that we live by every single day.
we could go, that's a whole nother podcast. We may
It
just
is.
bookmark that one, and that's our next podcast we do together. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you being here this day, and I'm excited for our listeners to get some insights as to what's working at a really, really successful company.
Thanks, David.
This podcast was made possible by our sponsors, Byte Software, First Close, Angel AI, True, Candid, Mortgage Bankers Association of America, Lenders One, Modex, Ratter, as well as Mortgage Advisory Tools, and Fuel. Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast. Share with others. There's a lot of great content in this podcast and this interview with Emily. Good to have you, listeners. Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you back here at the next episode.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending. Our passion is to bring you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. So on this show, if you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, it's your go-to source for all things mortgage. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lykken on Lending.